So you're doing due diligence for a property. Here's 4 things that are very important for you to think about when you're doing due diligence. The first one is get an income and expense report from the seller if at all possible. Now, some sellers, they don't have an income and expense report just laying around, especially if they don't have a steady property management in place, if they manage the property themselves. Maybe they don't have one of these, but to the best of their ability, get all the income from that property. That's all the rental income, and that's all income from if they charge their tenants for doing laundry or any other thing that's on the property. Make sure you get all the income, and then as many expenses as they are aware of and that are consistent. So gardening, if they have any kind of landscaping costs, if they have a regular maintenance cost, if they pay for the water, all that kind of stuff. Make sure you get as much of that as possible up front so you can get a good projection where the numbers will be when you take over the property. Now, the second thing is estoppels. These are huge. A lot of investors and a lot of agents sometimes don't really see the importance of getting an estoppel. They kind of think it's just unnecessary because you already have a lease agreement. But here's where that really, really comes into play, and it's why it's so important to get those. Now, say a landlord and a tenant have signed a lease agreement for all the regular terms, but then something comes up. Say the washer and dryer breaks or a fridge breaks. Now, say the tenant says, I want my own fridge anyway, so can I just put that in? Now the landlord, maybe they don't write that down, but then the landlord agrees to let the tenant replace the fridge with their own, and then they get to take it when they leave. That's not necessarily in the lease agreement, especially if they did it word of mouth. But now the buyer sees the lease agreement, it says all appliances belong to the owner, but the tenant says, well, wait a minute, that fridge belongs to me because I bought it. It was extra. So what an estoppel does is it provides a summary of all the lease terms that the tenant is aware of and that the landlord is aware of, and it makes sure that all that information is up to date. So if there's a time when the tenant wants to look through that and says, wait a minute, that fridge actually belongs to me, that should be disclosed up front, then that should be signed in an estoppel to protect everyone involved so there's no surprises after the close of escrow and when that tenant leaves or when that person sells. Third thing to always get is the TDS, the disclosure that the seller provides to the buyer any deficiencies of the property that they're aware of, anything that would affect the sale of the property. This is the time for the seller to just air out everything that they know that would affect the sale. So make sure that you review that, make sure your realtor reviews that. Fourth thing is an actual inspection of the property or a walkthrough, either by your agent or yourself or both. Usually it's a good idea to make sure that you know what the property condition is like, what repairs are coming up, what needs to happen in the next 6 to 12 months. Maybe the roof looks like it's about 4 or 5 years. So you can know all that going in. So match your numbers up for your projections for your financials up with how much of those expenses are going to come up in the near future. If all that checks out, now you're ready to buy your investment property and run it by your realtor as well.